Hey everybody, how you doing? P691000 here, or Eli, whatever you want to call me. I do a lot of reviews and a lot of, just nostalgic kind of things on this channel. I also do a lot of ghost stories and etc. I wanted to do a kind of a nostalgic thing about Snick. I miss Snick, man. I'm sure a lot of y'all miss Snick, man. You remember coming home from school on Friday, man, and then just waiting for Snick. And if you don't know what Snick was like Nickelodeon, kind of like, I don't really know, unless you experienced it, it was like, it's like it came on Nickelodeon, but it came on later, like after dark, and it came on like at night. Oh man, it was just so cool. Had such great shows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into two parts, the earlier shows and the later shows. So that's what I'm going to do. But man, these were just great times being a kid. This was when TV was real TV. This is when you had like Smart Guy, and all the, well, that really didn't come on Nickelodeon, but and all those other great shows in the 90s. But anyway, let's get started with the first show here. Clarissa Explains It All. This was a pretty good show. It was one of the first shows to feature a female lead, and they didn't think it was going to do good because it had a female lead. But actually, it was a pretty popular show. Boys, girls, whatever, everybody watched it. It had a lot of fans, and it was pretty popular. Melissa Joan Hart played the part of Clarissa. She was later, away many years after the show. I think it was in 2002 or 2003. She was asked if she would like to go to the reunion of Clarissa Explains It All, and she said no. She said she would rather just move on. But despite that, it was a great show, and it was basically just her living life, going through her everyday life. She had a pet chameleon named Elvis. She had that little brother named Ferguson, I think was his name. So if y'all remember that was some great times. But basically she would like come home and explain her life, and I remember later on in some of the episodes she liked this guy, and that was a big thing on the show for a while. And then she got a job like later on. I forgot what the job was, but they were going to do like another show about it, about like her life at the job, but it didn't go so well, so whatever. But it was a pretty good show. And basically, like I said, it was just her coming home and having like these adventures just in her everyday life, really. She was just explaining life for teens, pretty much like how you get through life. It's like a way better and younger version of I don't know, let's see, whatever show does that today. I don't even know if shows do it anymore, but Clarissa Explains It All was basically just she's going to school, explaining to get through school, but it was for kids in like the early 90s, so it was a great show. Next is Roundhouse. Now, I really didn't like this show too much. I never actually really watched it. But it was basically kind of ridiculous in my personal opinion. It's the only show that ever came on Snick that I didn't like. Roundhouse was about just random things, really. It was about sketches, dances, doing weird stuff. They would dance, they would, they actually talked about some pretty sketchy things on the show for it to be on Snick. They talked about women's breasts, why men can never look them in the eye. They talked about drugs on a couple occasions, I believe. And they talked about some pretty serious topics, but I just didn't like the show. Every 5 seconds they would break out into song, and it was pretty ridiculous. But that's just my opinion. You might have liked it, and if you did, that's fine. But basically, it was just a sketch comedy show, really. But they were trying so hard to be funny, and they just weren't. Now, I know y'all remember Ren Stimpy. This, still today, there is no show like Ren and Stimpy was. It was funny. The timing was good. They had crazy, wacky adventures. The humor was good. And the art was just so unique and funny. There is no really any show like Ren and Stimpy anymore, and there probably never will be, but it was just so unique. If I remember right, I think it won some awards for being unique and funny. But this was just such a great show. I really miss it. I don't think they ever aired it after it went off of Snick. They never really aired it much anymore, at least not to my knowledge. They might have, but that I'm aware of, they didn't. But it was a pretty good show, pretty funny. And they had a lot of good times. It was basically just about those two being friends and just, you know, having just crazy adventures, really. And then I know y'all remember some Are You Afraid of the Dark? This is one of my favorite shows ever, dude. Basically, those guys are called the Midnight Society. It was a group of kids. They called themselves the Midnight Society, and they went up into the woods you have to assume it's every weekend night, I guess, but every other night or whatever, and they would tell stories. They would tell ghost stories about just whatever, you know. And it was a pretty good show. It was pretty well written. It was filmed in Canada. Which, actually, that's why there's no DVD release in the United States, because a Canadian company owns the rights, unfortunately. And I've bitched about that in another video, but these are just great episodes. If you've never watched them, please look on the internet. They're on the internet for free, so you need to watch the episodes. They're great. But it's basically like the Midnight Society goes up into the, you know, forest, and they tell ghost stories, and the ghost stories come alive, you know, and like pretty much shows you in the show, or it shows the ghost story that they're playing, you know, that is the show that they're telling. Just some great shows. They would always say in the beginning, oh man, I've watched the show so many times. They would throw that dust in the fire, and the fire would like spark up like really bright, and they'd be like, I call this story or whatever, the tale of whatever, and then the fire would spark up and it would show it. And then they would always pour the water on the fire at the end of the show. There are some pretty funny parodies of Are You Afraid of the Dark? If you look up Are You Afraid of the Dark the later years, that is hilarious, I have to say. It's pretty funny. But that was just a great show. Then, The Secret World of Alex Mack. Basically, it was a girl that gets radiation, or well, actually like something nuclear like poured on her, and she gets these powers. And all through like her time, you know, with these powers, she's trying to hide it from her parents, and only a couple of her friends know about it, and that's not even until later, but basically she hides it from people for a long time. And what winds up happening is like this secret government organization is after her, and they want to figure out how she got these powers so they can duplicate them in other people, and they wind up like hunting her through a bunch of episodes, and like it's basically like her against a government organization, and you know, she's beating back the government organization. A very 90s show, and you can tell it by the way she's dressed, but it was a great show, and it had a lot of great writing, and it had a great theme to it as well. But I don't know, I really like this show. And it kind of shows like the dangers of pollution. I mean, in an extreme way, but it shows the dangers of pollution and radiation and all that. And then I had to add, I know you guys remember the big orange couch. I know you guys remember that. And there's like a little thing I would like to read to you guys, if I can find it on here. Yeah. Alright. It's like a little thing I'd like to read that I found about the big orange couch. That said, here's some background information. Back in June of 1999, during Nickelodeon's 20th birthday celebration, they had a month-long giveaway frenzy. The final prize was the big orange couch from Snick, $20,000 and cookies, which is kind of weird. I'm guessing, from what I've read about it, they had cookies stuffed inside the couch. I don't really... Whatever. Anyway, the couch was supposedly to be delivered to the lucky kid by a Nick celebrity. Now, does this couch still exist? Does that lucky individual know what they're sitting on, literally? Did someone's mother cringe at the idea of having a bright orange couch, and at the first opportunity tossed it along with the symbol of childhood for all 90s kids everywhere? Did that kid bring the couch to college with them, where it hosted spilled beer rather than a celebrity? If you know anything about this, please let me know. Maybe you knew the lucky kid and thought they didn't deserve it as much as you did. I know I'd love to have this couch, and I'm sure plenty of you would as well. So that is kind of a curious question, because I do remember that giveaway. I remember it pretty clearly. And they were like, oh, it'll be delivered to your house by a celebrity from Snick or Nickelodeon. But the weird thing is, they never aired that. You know what I'm saying? They never aired that giveaway, which is really odd. Because Nickelodeon back in those days had all these game shows, and they always aired whatever they were doing. So I know they would have aired it. Now, there's two options. One, either nobody won the couch and it's rotting away in a big container, or a big, you know, faculty somewhere, which I hope is not the case. Or if somebody did actually win the couch and it's either long gone or they're taking really good care of it, which I hope they're taking good care of it. But it would be nice for them just to post some pictures about it, or make a video on YouTube about it, or something. You know, I'd like to know what happened to the big orange couch, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would too, and girls. And you know, I don't know, I'm just curious, like, what happened to it. I'd like to kind of see it again, you know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of y'all would like to see it after all these years. And if you'll remember, you remember that big orange couch that Keenan was sitting on during the 90s Are Back commercial? That's not the original big orange couch, if you'll pay attention to it. So, if you think about it, then that big orange couch has got to be somewhere out there. It's somebody has won it, or they would have used it. You know, if they would have had it in a warehouse, they would have used it in that, you know, the 90s Are Back commercial. Now, I don't watch Nickelodeon anymore, but my niece does, and I happened to see that commercial when she was watching it, and I got really excited. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was explaining to her what Snick was, and she just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you know, because she just didn't understand it, because she wasn't there at that time. She wasn't even alive at that time. But I told her, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you missed out. I was like, Snick was so awesome. And the shows she watches today, I'm sure that she loves them just as much as, you know, we did our shows. But her shows just are kind of, I don't know, whatever. They don't compare to the good old days of Kenan and Kel, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Clarissa Explains It All, The Adventures of Pete and Pete, you know, Stick Stickly, and so on and so forth. They just don't compare to Snick, you know, back in the day. But I don't know, I'm kind of curious, like, what happened to the big orange couch or whatever. But if you guys know the whereabouts of the big orange couch, or, you know, have seen it around, or you'd like to know what happened to it, you know, whatever, please leave a comment. In part 2 of this video, I'll do like the later episodes and the closing of Snick, unfortunately. I'll do like some of the later shows where Kenan and Kel, I think probably Stick Stickly was a later show. I'm not sure if that aired on Snick or not. I don't know, I'll look it up. But the second part will have the later shows of Snick and the closing of Snick, and in my personal opinion, I'm going to go ahead and tell you why Snick wouldn't work today is because it's just not, you know, our age group. You know, it was a real early 90s show. Now, I think they could revive Snick. I think a lot of kids would probably like it, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. For some reason, I don't know why, but I just don't think that they would do it. It would be really cool if they would, because I'm sure, like I said, a lot of kids would probably watch it or whatever. But, you know, they just don't have good enough shows for Snick anymore. Like, if they were going to do a new Snick, they just don't have the shows anymore. They don't have the writing. They don't have the heart, the comedy anymore. So, whatever. But, I'll make a second video of this, and I'll upload it sometime, either during the week or next weekend, or whatever. Peace, love. I love y'all, and I hope you have a great day.